Slowly but surely, I'm building my first ever framer template focused on photography. I'm calling it Photographisk, and it is unlike any other photo site that you've seen on the internet. Because after going through and looking at different templates to pull inspiration from, I just really didn't find anything that stuck out to me. And I did find that there were a lot of templates and sites out there, like photographers that I watch on YouTube. Their websites could use some improvement. So I decided, you know what, as much as I can try to pull inspiration here and there, I really just focus on trying to do my own thing and try to get inspiration in terms of structure here and there where I need it. But without further ado, let's start taking a look at it. So here we are in the Framer interface, looking at the desktop version here. So let's go into preview mode. And right off the bat, this is not your typical website look. I figured if I have the power to create websites, let's make an experience. I don't want to do just a basic header with navigation and then you scroll. I wanted something a bit more immersive that has materials that pull up this tactile quality about it. Here we have almost like an actual desktop. We're on a plywood background. I got this from Texture Labs. So shout out to Texture Labs for always having great resources available for free. I really like this plywood texture and I'm using it throughout the site for what I've built so far. Instead of having a normal navigation bar up at the top, all these little Polaroids are actually the navigation options. And so they're fully customizable, being able to edit the text and the photo. It adds a whole ton of personality and it's still quite clear what each thing is. So we have about, photo albums, photographer's log. This is the blog element that I'm adding in, a gear page, a contact section. And these Polaroids down here are referencing the album's CMS. So the latest 3 photo albums that you have in the CMS will show up here. So the site will dynamically update as you are adding your photography to it. And really, that's the desktop. And then if you scroll down, you get a footer with site navigation and links to socials and contacting, really keeping it essential and clean. So you can dive into the sections that you want to look at. I'm really happy with this. It has a ton of character. And another aspect I want to highlight in this video is all the imagery that you're seeing here. These aren't real photos. These are actually from Lummi, which is AI stock imagery. Instead of pulling from Adobe Stock or just some generic stock site, there's a whole bunch of these images that are perfect for placeholders and building up templates or sites that look real and lived in instead of just placeholder. So this way you can actually see really how you could set up this site once it's a full template. I'll go over to the Lummi site later, but first I want to dive into what the site looks like. So if we come into a bit about me, then we can see that the wood texture is implemented here in a couple different ways, but things change up a bit. Instead of the background being wood, that has moved to the header, and the background is a nice dark gray. This way, we give precedence to the content on the page and it's not too busy. So as we scroll on down, I'm going to be adding different kinds of sections here. That will all be dynamic for tablet and mobile as well. The header, this is my pride and joy of the site so far. Instead of having that top navigation bar, I still don't want that, so I decided to go a different direction. When we come up to select an item, it actually pops on out with a drawer-like animation. It's got a bit of a bounce to it, and then we have access to all of the Polaroids, which are our menu options. So same that we saw on the home page, we now have the home option that shows up, all fully customizable, and it's all one component. So once you edit those photos, it'll edit across the whole entire site. And this just adds so much character. Like, I have fun playing with the menu. And you know, if you can say that about a site, there's something good going on. Quite pleased with how this has turned out. I really don't have any edits for it. It works on tablet, but then it's way too crowded for mobile, so I have figured out another solution for that, but I haven't fully built it yet, so we won't get into that in this video. And then if we come over into photo albums, here I'm playing around with adding in some intro animations when the page loads. When you hover over each album option, you get a little animation. And let's see if we click on one. Then we're brought into the CMS detail page for that album specifically. So we have title, description section, location, and date. If you want to have that, then you start scrolling on through. The information stays up in the corner as you go through the album. Then you come on down to the bottom and you have navigation arrows. I want to work on these. Don't know what to do with them yet, but I'm kind of leaving this page alone because after getting it initially set up, I do want to do more, but I feel like I am limited with what Framer has offered in terms of the CMS. Like even being able to do this gallery option, it's with the newer CMS update that came out a couple months ago at this point. The CMS is being upgraded and being worked on. Having the gallery option to just drag and drop a bunch of items into is great, but the downside right now is there's no carousel functionality, there's no slider functionality. And with the gallery on the CMS page, it's all one aspect ratio. So if you have a bunch of different photos, you took some horizontal, you took some vertical, or you even just went with different aspect ratios within one of those form factors, that won't show up here because there is no masonry grid option. I feel like it really needs to be implemented and hopefully sometime soon, because I don't feel like I can launch this site without that, because I want to be able to show my photos the way I took them and not have all of them cropped into one single form factor like this. So I know there are custom code overrides, but with it being a Framer template, you're technically not supposed to have that. So if I can avoid going that route, then I will. Yeah, so if we come back to photo albums, we can take a look at another one, Soothing Nature. You get a feel for how it is, how it's looking. And then photographer's log. Don't have anything going on there yet. And then for the gear page, I'm really happy with how this one turned out, because I was humming and hawing going back and forth over how I wanted to build this page, because I was trying to figure out how do I use the two CMS items if you're planning on going for the basic Framer plan. Because if you go over, then you have to upgrade to Pro, and that's more money. And for me, if I'm gonna be putting this on a paid plan, I don't want to be spending a whole bunch of money just to have my photo site, because I'm not a professional, I'm a hobbyist. I have years of work to show, but I want to keep the costs down if I'm putting it on a plan at all. The way that the gear page works is these are individual components to edit. So you have the make, model, and description that you can edit for each one. And if you want to add another one, then you just duplicate it and edit that content. It's important that the albums and the blog are the two CMS collections, because for the cross-referencing functionality, if I'm writing a blog and I'm talking about a certain album, then I want to be able to reference that album. The other way around, if I have an album and sure, I have my little description on the left-hand side, but if I want to go into stories that happened and be more expansive, I don't want to fill up the album page with that. Maybe I wrote a blog about it. So I want to be able to cross-reference that blog on the album page. That's why those two take precedent there. Being able to reference the gear would be cool, but in my mind, I'm going to leave that for a pro version of this site that I'll build later on. That would be really nice to say if you have multiple cameras and you're using a bunch of different lenses and you have this album that you want to give all that information and you want to detail things, it would be cool to be able to cross-reference the gear that you used, but for the scope of this site, it's just not possible. So sticking to the albums and the blogs, that's just how it's going to work. But with that being said, the workaround for the gear page is looking really clean, and it's easy enough to update because it's just text. Here, it's a component itself. So then you just edit the make and model on the right-hand side, and then for the paragraph, you hit edit content. Boom, there you go. So if you want to copy and paste from somewhere else that you have written, or just type it up right in here, then you're good to go. And if we come across, then that same layout works pretty well for tablet as well. And then I have a mobile variant where we don't have the same make, model, description up top, but we have make and model in the top row and then description in the second row. Pretty self-explanatory because you're reading it as a line of text anyway, and you'll know what it is. You don't need the descriptors. It's more of a nice thing for the table layout in tablet and desktop, but mobile is also looking pretty clean. Oh, you know what? I do have a bit of the mobile menu going on here, so let's check that out. So here, the header doesn't do anything. It's just got the name. And so we scroll around here, blah, blah, blah. This is the mobile menu that then sticks when you scroll down to the footer. And so right now, it just opens up into the navigation functionality when you tap on it. But I'm going to be changing this. It's going to be smaller versions of the Polaroids that are the menu items. So that way you still get the same sort of character, even if it's in a different format. But right now here, just having a little mobile menu down at the bottom, I like that because then you're not reaching up to the top to try to open up menus and navigate the site, which is a big frustration for me because even though like I got big hands, like phones are huge. Like I got a Pixel 6 Pro and like I'm always struggling to reach to get up to the top and then trying to like hold it weird so I can reach up higher. It's just not ideal. So being able to bring down navigation to an accessible location, that's great for a whole lot of people, and it's a unique look. It's a bit more app-like in that sense, I think. Yeah, I think that's the majority of it. I don't have the contact page or the blog section built up yet. So the gear page is looking pretty good. About me, I gotta add a couple more sections in there for variety. And then the photo albums, this one's looking pretty good. Not much going on because I have 9. I will fill this up with some more placeholder albums. And that's actually a good segue to talk about Lummi again. You can see here, no more boring stock. And I have to agree with that. There are tons of images that are looking quite lifelike, and you have a bunch of different style options as well. Under tools, you can reframe, you can restyle all of these. Background removal, they're even photo to video, which is just crazy to me. Duotone, you can change up the vibe of these. And a new feature they just dropped is following people. So if you like the images they're generating, then you can follow them. For me, I've just been getting started with things, and I've made a few collections here. And these are basically like the albums that I put onto my site. So I created collections here for them so that I could then have them all in one place and download. So that's pretty nice. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention here that Lummi also has a Framer plugin. So for me adding everything to the CMS, I downloaded the images, but you can actually jump in and make your own image fill right in Framer. So if you have a frame like this, and then you click into the fill, you go to image, instead of clicking choose image and uploading from the computer, you come on down here to plugins, and then you'll see a few different ones now, like there's plugins popping up all the time. If we click on Lummi here, then you have access to the same photos that you see right on the site. So if you see something you like, then you click on it, and boom, the image is filling the frame. If you want to resize, then it works just like a regular photo does in terms of AI generated content. And as a designer trying to keep up with the current landscape and just see how things are changing, it's easy to feel unsure about using these new tools, especially with things like the copyright infringement, with these large language models being trained on a bunch of data they do not have the rights to use. In many ways, I still feel quite iffy about generative AI, but in the sense of using it as stock imagery, I'm using it as placeholder content that will then be replaced by your content that you created. In my case here, I'm building this as a template, but I'm also building it for my site. Any of the images that are here, I'm replacing that with my own photography. I'm not producing generated content that's infringing on copyrights or other people's work and calling it my own. I'm using it as a placeholder. In that sense, I have justified using it, and out of the available libraries, I would say Lummi has been the highest quality with such a wide range of style. Like you saw with my albums, if we go over to those, like they all look really good. So as placeholder content, for you to get a feel of what you can do with the site, it feels real, it feels lived in, like you're actually doing something with it, as opposed to a bunch of stock photography, which I'd be sifting around trying to find good ones to make it feel a bit more natural and not so bland. So yeah, I'm using Lummi to fill out all the imagery here, which has been great because then I get to visualize what the site looks like, and it's helped Photographisk take shape as well. Feel free to subscribe, like the video, leave a comment, all that stuff for a good old algorithm's sake, and then I will see you in the next one. Peace.